do you think that there are any marked differences between cultural traditions that would enable you to rank order them in terms of their ethical validity?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so for example, we could contrast mainstream UK Christianity with Islamic fundamentalism.
Yes.
Okay, so there's a hierarchy.
There is a hierarchy.
Okay, a hierarchy that points to what?
Well, in the case of Islam, I dislike any religion which punishes apostasy with death, that throws gay people off high buildings, that practices clitoridectomy. That seems to me to place Islam on a lower level than Christianity, but that's not to say anything very positive about Christianity.
Well, it might be to say something positive about Christianity. Like, I think that question is open, because you might ask yourself, what did Christianity get right that led it away from those particular presumptions and towards something that you regard as more ethically appropriate? Like, this isn't a trivial question.
It's a very modest claim. There's not very much. I mean, to be better than a religion that throws gay people off high buildings is not really a very virtuous achievement.
I don't know. I don't know if that's true, because if you look at the barbarism that characterizes the human past, you might think that any progression whatsoever towards something approximating mercy and tolerance is nothing short of a bloody miracle.
Well,
like, people are pretty ruthless, and so are our chimpanzee cousins.
Yes, they are.
Right. So,
yes.
So we move forward into the light with great difficulty,
yes,
and
yes.
The fact that we can take that for granted now, and that it seems self-evident and deserving of faint praise, it's not so clear to me that that's a reasonable proposition.
Okay, let's grant the faint praise, but that has nothing to do with the truth value, and what I care about is the truth value. I see no truth value in the claims of Christianity, the virgin birth, the resurrection, the miracles. Do you believe in any of those? Do you believe Jesus was born a virgin?
I don't think that Jordan Peterson realized that he made his own argument fall flat on his face. What he is trying to say is that since Christianity is not as bad as Islam in the way that it treats people of differences, then that makes Christianity a better religion, which makes it a good religion, that Christianity has then some type of value. But what Jordan Peterson doesn't realize is what the Oxford professor was saying, is that just because you're better than one doesn't make you better. It would be the same way to say that this person committed murder and this person committed armed robbery. They are both crimes, but yet we will say that this person is worse who committed the murder than the person who committed the armed robbery. This person took someone's life. This person just stole some money, endangering people, but stole some money, but never took life. But both are still yet crimes, and both are still punishable, and both end up in prison if caught. So therefore, they are both bad. They are both deserving of prison. Now, one of the things that Jordan Peterson doesn't realize, and that I would have went into more if I was sitting in the chair, is the fact that the treatment of human beings by Christians compared to Islam is not something that happened because of the religion, not even slightly. It is because the cultural changes that occurred within each individual society that changed the behavior of how people treated one another. Let me put it to you this way. Slavery is an easy example to utilize because we can all understand it. When the Catholics invoked slavery during the time frame of the Roman Empire, they invoked Leviticus 25, where it talked about if someone is of your own tribe, then they are only to be a slave for 7 years or until the debt is paid off. And then upon them completing that, you give them items and they go off into their freedom. But yet, if a person is of a different tribe, then you are able to make them slaves in perpetuity and pass them down as property to your children. Those are the differences of slavery in Leviticus 25. And oftentimes Christians like to focus just on the first part and ignore the second part that allows for the transatlantic slave trade and the trans-Saharan slave trade to be acceptable. It is also what they don't realize allowed for up until the 1500s, the enslavement of Irish people and Scottish people to the Anglos, the English people. It allowed for them to be enslaved for property instead of just being enslaved until a year of Jubilee. So through the Catholic process, enslavement was based on that. Now, the Catholics with the papal bull by Nicholas V, said that if the person was a Christian, then you have to give them their freedom. You cannot enslave them. But if the person is non-Christian, and he pushed the Portuguese and the Spanish to go into West Africa and enslave those people, he wanted them to enslave those people. And all of this was so that they would help fight in the last crusades and stop fighting one another, the Portuguese and the Spanish, to stop fighting one another. So the Catholic version of slavery was more in line with Leviticus 25. Whereas the Protestant slavery took the second half of Leviticus 25 and also included the enslavement that is there based on the curse of Noah to Ham's son Canaan, where in that one it talked about how the children of Ham, Cain especially, will be the servants of the other brothers. Now, this obviously took about 2 millennia in order for it to happen, but it was utilized to justify the Protestant slavery that occurred in the North America, minus Mexico, but North America, while the more Catholic version of slavery was enforced in Central America, Mexico portion of North America, and throughout Portuguese and Portugal in South America, as well as the Spanish. So what you have here is that through Christianity, you had 2 different ways of slavery being invoked based on Leviticus 25 and based on Genesis. I believe that's in Genesis 6 or 7 or somewhere around in there. I'm not sure where in Genesis it is. But needless to say, that this enslavement of other people occurred and was justified by the Bible. Now, we move into the 19th century, and in the 19th century, no longer were other Europeans considered to be of different tribes to the degree that slavery was invoked, but they did have their own set of Jim Crow laws against the Germans, against the Irish, against the Scottish, and against other less powerful Europeans. But complete slavery was still part of the brown people and the indigenous people, and the black people. So what began to happen, though, is that as we move from an agrarian status and industrialization began, we saw that because of money, and let me say money, slavery in some areas began to be seen as not as useful and was starting to change the mindsets of people. It had nothing to do with the Bible. It had nothing to do with the Quran. As a matter of fact, if it wasn't for Eli Whitney's cotton gin, then the oligarchy that rose, or aristocracy, whichever name you want to give them, that rose in the South, that increased the need of slavery in the South, would have never happened. And slavery would have ended earlier simply because financially it would not have made sense. But in the replacement of that came Jim Crow. In the replacement of that came the Anti-Chinese Immigration Act. In the replacement of that came the scourge that was put upon Latin Americans coming into the Americas. So it changed not because of Christianity, it changed because of the culture. It changed because of the economics of what they were dealing with. So it's not that Christians stopped throwing people off buildings, or Christians stopped stoning gay people, or Christians stopped slavery because of the Bible. Did they utilize the Bible to try to justify it, to give an emotional aspect to Europeans or to Americans, to be able to say that, hey, we shouldn't have slavery because we are all brothers and sisters under Christ? Did they utilize that to galvanize people in their emotional state as to why they should get rid of slavery, why they should get rid of Jim Crow, why the Civil Rights Act should be passed? Yes, but it was also out of fear of revolution and because it wasn't economically viable anymore. It has absolutely nothing to do with your Bible. And if people in the Islamic culture stop throwing gay people off of buildings, it won't have anything to do with the Quran. It will just have to do with the societal norms. So always remember, you have to free yourself to be yourself, because your greatness is non-negotiable. good journey.